Hey church, I'm Jennifer Alessio, the children's pastor here at Heights Church. Thank you so much for joining me for today's devotional. Today we're going to be talking about the friendship of David and Johnathan. Now they meet right after David slays Goliath with just a rock and a slingshot. And Saul invites David to come and talk with him. He wants to get to know this young man that defeated this great warrior and giant. And after their interaction, Johnathan and David meet. And this is what the Bible tells us about it in 1 Samuel 18, verse 1 and verses 3 through 4. After David had finished talking with Saul, he met Johnathan, the king's son. There was an immediate bond between them, for Johnathan loved David. Now, Johnathan loved David because he was a great warrior himself. The Bible tells us that he defeated an army of 20,000 men. But he also loved David because David had great character and because David loved God. And those are very important things that were near and dear to Jonathan's heart. He values great character and he loved God himself. Now, verse 3 tells us, and Johnathan made a solemn pact with David. The NIV version calls it a covenant, because he loved him as he loved himself. And Johnathan sealed the pact by taking off his robe and giving it to David together with his tunic, sword, bow, and belt. Now, Johnathan and David have a great story, a great friendship. And it's really a story that starts with King Saul. And I encourage you to read it all through 1 Samuel, in 1 Samuel as well as in 2 Samuel. Today we're just going to be talking about a summary of their story together, which was not without conflict. There was great conflict, mainly because Saul was so jealous of David. Because he had disobeyed God, God removed his anointing and his presence from him and gave it to David. And Saul could see that. And he became jealous because David was very successful. He won every battle and every campaign, and the Israelites loved him. And Saul became so jealous that he decided to kill David. David is very intuitive, so he ends up fleeing and hiding in the wilderness, and Johnathan helps him do so. Later on, Johnathan finds out that his dad is going to pursue David in the wilderness, and he decides to warn him. And when he decides to warn him, he does the most incredible thing. This is probably my favorite part of the whole story. The Bible tells us in 1 Samuel 23, verse 16, that Johnathan went to find David and encouraged him to stay strong in his faith in God. That's the kind of friend that I want. And I want to be the kind of friend that encourages my friends to stay strong in their faith in God. And then after Johnathan encouraged David and he warns him that his father is pursuing him, he goes back to Saul, he fights with him, and Johnathan continues to hide from Saul in the wilderness. He vows never to harm him because he doesn't want to go against God's anointed, and because he wants to honor his covenant that he made with Johnathan. Eventually, Saul dies by his own hand. Johnathan, sadly, and his brothers die in battle as well. And David ends up becoming king over Judah first, and 7 years later over all of Israel. And at that point, he looks for a way to honor the promise that he made to his best friend Johnathan. And he chooses to give Saul's land to Jonathan's grandson, Mephibosheth, and even invites Mephibosheth to have a seat at his table and treats him as a son. So friends, we can learn three great things from the friendship of David and Johnathan. And the first thing is that friendship is a gift from God. If we learn nothing else from this amazing story of David and Johnathan, is that their friendship was truly a gift of God, a gift to encourage each other, a gift to encourage them to be who God had created them to be, but also a gift of great encouragement and comfort when they needed it most. The other thing we can learn from this is that friends love each other the way they love themselves. And we can see that both David and Johnathan did that. And the third thing we can learn from this great friendship is that true friends are loyal. You know, Proverbs 17:17 tells us that a friend is always loyal and a brother is born to help in time of need. And David and Johnathan were both friends and brothers to each other. Okay, friends, so my encouragement for all of us is this. Maybe we may be feeling that we don't have a friend like David and Johnathan, and we would like that. I encourage you to pray and ask God to bring that type of friendship in your life because, friends, He created us for a relationship, and that is a prayer that He is ready and willing to answer for you. He wants you to have this type of relationship. And my next challenge is this. I challenge all of us to pray and ask God to help us be that type of friend for someone else. Because if we want a great friend, we need to be great friends ourselves. Okay, friends, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.